Welcome back to Holding Court with the Nerd Queens. This is our Trinity segment, hosted by myself, Cole, my partner, Nana, and our friend Meg, also known as Wonder Meg on social media. In tonight's episode, we are going to be talking with our friend and journalist, Sean O'Connell, about his work on his book about the Release the Snyder Cut movement, and just catching up because it's been about 6 months since our last episode. So let's jump into it. I'm Cole.
I'm Nana.
I'm Megan.
And that's Sean.
I wasn't going to do it again. Last time I bullied my way through. I was waiting for an introduction.
So, what do you have to tell us about your book?
It's for sale. Grab a copy right now. It's getting rewritten, is what I have to tell you guys. Hi, ladies. I'm so happy to be with you guys on this celebratory day.
Wait, did something happen?
Yes.
Yeah, I know, right? What happened?
Something
I
major
haven't been on
happened.
social media for a while.
So we were talking about this, in the fact that before we started recording, that it still, to me, doesn't feel real. It doesn't feel like we've turned the corner, that the all the ramifications of it are still settling in. Yes, it feels like we've won, and you've won. I keep saying we. It's you. You guys have done it.
You've been in this with us for the past 8 months now, and
I know.
It's definitely a win for you too. By the way, for you, those of you listening, if you live under a rock, the Snyder Cut got announced. We're finally getting it.
Yes, and so the movement won. It's across of the finish line. But what happens then is you stop and you think, like, what does that mean? And to me, what it truly means is we're going to get to see it. Like, that's the point that hasn't settled in yet, of just how different we assume Zack's vision and Zack's cut is going to be. And we're finally going to get to see it after years and years of speculation. And that's the most exciting to me.
Yeah, definitely. It's a little surreal to think about it, because obviously 3 years we've been fighting for this thing, and it's like it went from, okay, we're fighting for this, but it's always an if it's going to happen. And in the past few months, I feel like it shifted into when. And
definitely.
Now we know when, and it's just so...
Yeah, for some of us, it's always been a when, but for the world, it became when a few months ago.
But even with that, though, there still seemed like there was plausible obstacles that you could point to that just said, as much as I want to believe that this is going to happen, there's still a lot of things in play that make me think that, like, right down to the minute where, before it got announced, I didn't believe it until it happened. Because Henry joined, and I was sort of tracking people's reactions to it on Twitter as it was going, and it was like, oh my God, who's next? Is it going to be Gal? Will it be Ben? Momoa's got to join. Like, he's going to get the whole cast. Then when it was just Henry for a while, and then the fans joined, and I saw someone tweet, and they were like, oh, maybe this is just a Man of Steel Q&A. Maybe Henry just joined for that. And I started to believe that. I was like, oh God, maybe that's all that it is. And yet, then the reveal finally came, and you were able to sort of. I actually screamed out loud. I screamed
I think we all did. I screamed immediately. Yeah. And my brothers and my dad I could hear them. Well, I guess it got announced.
Yeah, it was like I screamed as well. And I mean, there've been a lot of rumors and whispers in 2 days leading up to it, basically since the watch party got announced. I think that people started speculating, and as in, why is it suddenly 20th of May? Why is it suddenly in 2 days when it would make more sense for it to be on a Man of Steel anniversary?
Sure.
Stuff like this. So I mean, you guys probably all saw it. The Twitter was crazy about it. And everybody was wondering, okay, does this mean that we are actually getting the announcement? But everybody was also very apprehensive in a in a sense where the anticipation was so high, and it was like, well, if we are hoping for this and it's not going to happen this time, like the whole atmosphere was so changed and so victorious, and if it didn't get announced, it would probably like make a lot of people very, very upset, I think.
I think if it didn't get announced, it would have been like the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. We would have been pretty beaten down.
That's a great question. Okay, so, but really, do you think you guys would have been able to regroup and keep going, though?
We would have like, our close friends and everything, like us, we're ride or die. We would have definitely tried.
Yeah.
Sure.
Though I'm not sure if we would have been able to gather everyone up from the ashes of that.
Because,
I think we would eventually, but I think it would have taken time. I think that a lot of people would take a hit and leave, at least temporarily.
McCarthy, who co-hosts my podcast with me on the Real Blend podcast, he was trying to be the voice of reason when I was getting myself too hyped up, and he was saying to me things along the lines of, "Hey man, Zack didn't promise anything beyond a Man of Steel screening. Like everybody else is putting this on him to make an announcement. Like that's speculation." And I was like, "Dude, you're technically right. I know that's fine, but listen, it's different now.
Yeah.
Come to think, wait, this was your first time like in this situation, wasn't it? Because you joined the movement only a little bit ago, so you didn't have the last couple of false starts.
Well, what were the biggest false starts? San Diego Comic-Con was a big one.
That was
the one in 2018. There was a lot of buzz where people were hoping it's gonna get released and all that stuff, but obviously there was a little more to it. There was the Wall Street Journal article, the infamous.
You don't have to tell me about that one. Believe me. I had to go on an apology tour for Ben Fritz in order to get people to talk to me.
I mean, I think that looking back, I think it was sort of important that it happened, because we were able to pick ourselves up and recover from it and basically rise up stronger and drive it home, I guess.
And look where we are now.
Exactly. But yeah, that was one big like where we could feel that people were really down because of that article, because there was a hope for that San Diego Comic-Con 2018. Mm-hmm. Now looking back, I don't think it would have made much sense for 2018 to be announced, because I feel like these big studios, they make these presentations for San Diego much, much further in advance, like months and months and months. And it just seems like if they were going to release the Snyder Cut on 2018 San Diego Comic-Con, they would have had to start getting it ready before Justice League even came out.
Sure, right.
Which just doesn't make much sense. And then there's a lot of people, well, not a lot of people, there is a fraction of people that have tried to say, that if the presence at San Diego Comic-Con 2018 was bigger and louder from the movement, that they would have released it. But that's just not how it works. Like, the studio makes the presentation for Hall H. They work on it for months. They have this certain, you've been to San Diego, Sean. You know what it looks like in Hall H, I bet. Sure. So it's not like they would decide the evening before, oh, hey, there's not thousands of fans of this thing, so we're just going to cross it out. That just seems kind of like not a real thing.
Well, and it's funny that you say that, Nana, because there's a lot of times, there's been, not a lot of times, but there's been a few times where I would hear things from people in the movement who hope that something is going to happen or want to believe that something's going to happen. And just knowing from doing this, for covering this from 20 years, I can almost sit back and say, yeah, it's probably not going to happen for the way that you think it's going to be. Like, be optimistic. And sure, that could be, to me though, HBO streaming always, like, the addition of that service as a possibility always felt to me like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like, if they're going to give him the chance to finish it off and put it out somewhere where it doesn't have to have a ton of repercussions, because here's a component that I don't think a lot of people have been talking about. Warner Brothers really doesn't want to disrupt its theatrical slate right now. Like the way that they view it, I think that they think it's going well. Aquaman was a huge hit for them. They're excited for Wonder Woman 84. They are now invested in Robert Pattinson and Matt Reeves and whatever they're trying to do. So it'd be tough to give Zack closure with a movie that exists in a canon that they almost aren't committed to anymore, And I just always believed that HBO Max was a better fit for something like this, where it wouldn't have a huge ripple effect on what they're trying to do on the movie side, while the movie side is still not as connected in a shared universe, in a way that the Marvel movies are, because like James Gunn's going to do a Suicide Squad movie that doesn't really have any connections to anything else. Birds of Prey seems to sort of float on its own little island. Wonder Woman hasn't been in a contemporary movie of her own just yet. They're still period pieces. So it's interesting how they're moving forward.
Well, it's interesting that you should mention the whole canon thing, because Zack isn't it's not like he's going to recast anyone for his cut with HBO Max. So it'll be interesting to see if are they going to be having these actors doing two different canons? Or is there going to be a Snyderverse canon and a DCEU canon? Are they going to work with Zack, since the DCEU has literally no points right now? They're not leading up to anything. Aquaman was great. Wonder Woman 84 looks amazing. But it's not leading up to anything. There is no plot line really that they're following or formula. So it's are they going to have everyone lead up to the Snyderverse eventually, or it's going to be really interesting to see, but there are a lot of questions for stuff like that.
Well, I think it has the possibility to lead into a Henry Cavill Superman film, if they want to keep moving forward with Henry. And why wouldn't you? He still looks the part very clearly.
Oh my God, I know.
Oh my God. By the way, how did you feel about him showing up to that stream with that goddamn mustache?
I loved it. I loved everything about it.
We were saying he probably grew it just for that.
We were saying that he probably woke up with a quarantine beard and decided, you know what, I'm gonna troll literally all of them. And just shave off the beard and leave the stash, because that totally suits his personality.
So great. I loved everything about it.
It was so petty. I love it.
But they haven't done a Flash movie yet, and I know that Andy Muschietti is working on it, but I don't know what his script is. You hear that it's a loose Flashpoint story, but nobody really knows. I honestly think that it's an ability, a chance for Zack to give closure to Ben and Ben's Batman. Mm-hmm. If it would be really difficult for Ben to continue as Batman, which I think I might have said it on your guys' show, or I've said it in other places before. Once they established him as the older, grizzled Batman, I wasn't quite sure how many films they were going to get out of that anyway, because you've already sort of established a point where he's down the line as being Batman, and so maybe they figure out some way to bring some closure to his arc.
It'll be interesting to see what they do with Ben, because I think that with Zack having control again, that Ben might be, if he's in a healthy place with his mental and whatnot, if he's in a good enough place for it, he might be interested in doing more than the cut, because that's what he seems to be implying heavily today on social media. But it'll all have to depend on how Zack is going to write the story, because Zack might change things. We don't know anymore, because we don't even know the cut anymore. It's just speculation. We have those the All the Gods t-shirts, and we act like that's the blueprint. But if Zack's given total control, he could whip something crazy out of his back pocket. We don't know.
100%. So we'll see. At least we know the door is open now at this point.
Yeah.
And
wide open.
The DCEU doesn't have a strong continuity that they have to be beholden to. So
they really don't.
I mean, what if he just at the very least sets up a contemporary Wonder Woman story?
Yeah, or right now, they had a plot to follow when they kept him in, and then they got rid of him. and tried to like cover up all the badness with Justice League, and it was like, what's this building up to? Because like at least like with like, I hate bringing up Marvel, but with the Marvel formula, you had the like they kind of planted things in the early movies before Avengers, like this is building up to something. This is like having Fury showing up and like, hey, I need to talk to Tony about stuff like the Avengers project or whatever. It's like they had established a continuation. So far, we don't really have that with any of the movies yet.
Well, and I stand by the fact that I think Marvel was extremely lucky. Like, there's so many opportunities where that should have blown up in their face. And I think that they'd be pretty smart moving forward to not be beholden to quite the continuity, you know? And I almost seem like they don't want to. Eternals is going to be separate from Shang-Chi, which will be separate from Doctor Strange. And, you know, they kept them connected for a long time, but I think that they were playing with fire at that point. And I think they should be. It's weird. I almost think they should start to mirror what DC is currently doing.
They're just doing it in reverse a little bit.
Yeah, hand it to a good filmmaker and let them tell what story they want to tell, and don't force it all together.
They can't.
Although I still say,
can't lose anything.
I think it's crazy if Warner Brothers and DC don't at least have their eye toward some form of a Justice League movie and story, because it's just too valuable of a brand. Like, why would you not be working towards something? So
yeah, I mean, like a live action Justice League movie is something that a lot of our generation and older has been dreaming of, like, forever.
Yeah. And look at the pile of dog shit you got.
Yeah.
To put it nicely.
I mean, it's you know, it's really funny. I saw a couple of people on Twitter, like, taking their copies off their shelves and burning them. Like, no. Like, don't do that. It's still, there's something to be said for that movie. Like, it look what it led to, you know? Like, it's not.
Yeah, it's still part of, like, the story of how we got here. So it's 100%. Still.
Yeah. Honor it for being a travesty.
And, you know, this is what I say every time I see, like, people protesting the NHL or the football league and everything, and you see them take their merch or season passes and burn. It's like, dude, you already gave them your money. This means absolutely nothing.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of, but obviously, part of me kind of sees why some people just want to put the whole Justice League thing behind them. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's in a way like that movie was not memorable. I don't think that people would remember it if it wasn't for the fight for Snyder Cut.
Right. No. It didn't produce anything worth selling.
The only thing I ever liked about Justice League was the fact that I was seeing all these actors I love all together. But then the cringe was too real.
Yeah.
And, you know, I love Zach's reaction to some of the things, like, well, there was no Russian family, or what do you mean thirsty scene?
Yeah.
It's like,
or just him saying, what the fuck?
I just push people and run away. I've never done hero stuff.
Well, that part wasn't so bad, because that felt genuinely Ezra. That literally felt like Ezra just, you know, pulling something out of his ass to be, you know, himself, because he's that kind of person.
Mm-hmm.
But I can see where you'd find it. That line was like one of my least problematic ones, because I was like, Ezra's such a dork. Like, that just sounds like him talking. That doesn't sound like Barry Allen. That's Ezra Miller right there.
Sure, but imagine if we get a heroic Barry Allen.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I think that what we might see is, like, he'll be heroic, but he still has no idea what he's doing. Because I've mentioned this before to people that, like, I love how Cyborg and the Flash, and even to some extent Superman, they're all the new kids in the industry, whereas Batman and Wonder Woman know what the hell they're doing. Mm-hmm. But, like,
the question, sorry to jump into it, but the question here is he really, like, a newbie? Because Snyder Cut should follow an actual Suicide Squad movie, and we had a Flash cameo there, and he was already being a hero at that point. So is he really that like inexperienced?
Well, that was like a bank robbing scene when he's encountering parademons. He was like, "I've never done battle."
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I can sort of see I've never done battle, but in the same time, I can't really see, oh, I just push some people and run away, because that's obviously not the truth if we go with the Suicide Squad as being part of the whole thing. Now, obviously, Suicide Squad is a whole other talk of town right now, but I believe that Ezra scene is still there in Ayer cut as well, and so I'm not sure if the Flash and Snyder cut would have been like this silly nothing kind of.
Speaking of Suicide Squad, Sean, with your experience in the industry and whatnot, how do you feel about the idea? Like, do you think there's any chance that HBO Max might grab that too as well, like the Ayer cut?
So I wrote a piece for Cinema Blend today where I kind of said I don't think Snyder Cut is going to establish a precedent that other films are going to be able to point to. I just think that there were so many factors in play that surrounded Zack's situation, largely being done with his principal production, being in post-production, the reasons he left, the reshoots. I find all this really fascinating because there's so many things that had to happen to bring us to this point. In an alternate reality, Joss Whedon comes in and does reshoots and pulls it off. And people watch the movie and they think like, all right, that wasn't all that bad, There's enough Snyder in there that he continued the vision, And then we wouldn't even be talking about a Snyder cut. So there's so many things that happened on this particular story that led to the fan base to unite and fight for Zack's vision. And I think a lot of it has to do with the amount of stuff that was done over. I don't know. And I referenced Suicide Squad as an example of this. David Ayer, at least in the early going of it, he did press for Suicide Squad. Like, he backed it. I interviewed him at the press junket in New York for Suicide Squad. He supported it. Did he compromise? Probably. Yeah. I think he fought a couple of battles with the studio, and some of it was ripples that came off of Justice League because they made him change things so that they could change both films essentially. So his is the one that's the closest to, oh yeah, this movie was fucked also by things that happened with Justice League. But I don't believe that we could turn around and say like, give me Lord and Miller's Solo, because Ron Howard had to take it over and they got fired, and give me the Josh Trank version of Fantastic Four. Like, there's either not enough footage, or at some point the directors agreed to a compromise and allowed a version of the film to come out, but Zack never did. He never backed the theatrical cut. Has in fact come out and said he's never seen it. He didn't do press when Justice League came out, to say, yes, this is the vision, the version that I condone. None of that happened. I think Snyder's cut is such a unique situation to anything I've ever seen before. However, all that being said, a streaming service is a really easy place for you to put an experiment like that because there's no harm, no foul. You're not charging people additional. If they're subscribers, they can enjoy this. If you want to use it as a way to maybe lure subscribers, sure. But I don't hear the drumbeat from the release, the Ayer cut, 1/10 of as loud as the call was for the Snyder. I haven't heard the drumbeat for any other movement be as loud and as passionate and as consistent as the Snyder cut one was. And I don't think you ever will again. I think you'll see little flare-ups, release the JJ cut or some such thing when people think that there's been too much studio interference on one side or the other, but you're never going to see a tsunami like this was.
No, definitely not. The thing with the Ayer cut, it seems to be, is that movie, it's already completed. Like, even the VFX are completed for what's not in it. So that's why people are speculating now that maybe just because we all have to wait now for, like, I think Ray Fisher, he counted it out last night on his fingers. 8 months
Mm-hmm.
for the Snyder cut. Like some people are thinking, oh, what if they put the Ayer cut just to give us like something? But it could honestly in this world right now, like we're in the middle of a pandemic where everyone's stuck at home doing all this viewing. I mean, even Netflix is moving up their catalog at an unprecedented rate. It's like anything could happen at this point, but you're right. The Ayer cut definitely has not had the same resounding support because, like, for some people, like for personally, Nana and I, we like Suicide Squad. Would we like to see the Ayer cut? Definitely, but we really enjoyed Suicide Squad as it was.
Mm-hmm. And the thing, though, like, sorry to jump in, but what I've said, like, what I wanted to say regarding obviously how like loud it was for Snyder Cut, I think that partially the whole like the uproar or like the whole rise of what happened and why we became as loud as we were, it was also due to Zack's engagement with us. It's
100%. Exactly what I'm saying.
You will not continue and carry on fighting for something if you don't know that the person that you're fighting for actually wants you to do that. And the fact that Zack went out and he started engaging with fans and he started supporting it, that's when it just started growing at an insane rate because people saw, oh, hey, these guys are fighting for this movie, but they are fighting for it and they have the backup of the person who made the movie. So there must be something to it. There must be something, something worth fighting for in there. I think that Zack, by joining on the fight in the way that he did, by engaging with fans, he kind of gave it a boost that made it what it was, what it still is, because I don't see this going away. I don't see people stopping just because we got an announcement. I think that people will carry on. People will, obviously we're already seeing it. We're already seeing articles coming out telling that we didn't deserve this, that it should have never been accepted, stuff like that. And so I think that, like, it's not going to just stop. It's not going to just go silent overnight just because we got an announcement. And obviously there's the charity aspect of our work, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon. I mean, we already have multiple fundraisers going as we speak, and I genuinely don't believe that that's going to stop. I mean, we ourselves, Cole and I, we promised it to Zack ourselves personally that we said we're not going to stop. So this is just, it grew and it became what it is now, but it did so not just because of the people who are in the movement or in the community, but also because how Zack interacted with us. He was the one who gave us hope, who kind of showed us, okay, this makes sense. What you're doing makes sense.
100%. And that's why I dedicate an entire chapter in the book to just explaining what Vero is. Vero was such a tool in this movement, and it gave him a method of communication directly to the fans, that sort of filtered through the normal algorithm BS that's part of all the other social media things. When you sign up and you become a fan of that person, you're getting their unfiltered stuff directly to them. And he was able to keep fanning the flames every chance he got. And that's the thing. You don't see the David Ayers and the Josh Tranks of the world. They encourage it every once in a while, but Zack was a maestro with it. He knew exactly how to keep the interest in the fan base going. And then you guys repaid him with all the kindness and the charitable aspects for the stuff that he shared with you guys. It was a beautiful symmetry that worked really well for everybody and got us here.
Yeah, I've seen some fans encouraging David Ayer to join Vero. I think more because it's safer there for directors who or people in general who are like celebs who still want to engage with fans or like be on social media but don't want to be attacked. Because like it's I don't know how Vero manages it, but it's such like a healthy place to be. Like you can share things there, and it just feels nice. Like you don't go on there dreading what you're going to see. Whereas occasionally you go onto Twitter and you're like, oh, well, let's look at this shitstorm.
Yeah. It's like every morning I wake up and it's like, do I have to?
Why do we do this to ourselves? Why?
It's like the only reason we've really stuck with well, I like Twitter personally. I have this fascination with social media in general because it's such an incredible tool, but put into like, and of course when you when you hand a tool to every person on the planet, you're going to have assholes who troll. And while some days I get stressed out from like the trolls and the haters and all that bullshit, but it's like I still have this fascination and this love for these social medias because it gives you an ability to connect with other people in a way that you never could. I mean, I met Nana because of social media. So
yeah, but not because of Twitter, thank God.
No, that was a failed social media we met on, but like with Nerd Queens, we only stayed on Twitter for the movement, and we're only still there for the movement, you know, to keep things going. Because we're not done yet. We're not stopping. We're here to support Zack and whatever he needs. And like Nana said, we told him that to his face. We're sticking with him no matter what.
We're still going to get Army of the Dead before this, though, right?
Oh yeah, we can't wait. We can't wait for that.
He doesn't know yet when Netflix is dropping Army.
It's supposed to come out like at the end of the year.
Yeah, that's like the ballpark range, and I think he said that it's still on schedule-ish, but we don't know. You know, the pandemic's really got everyone screwed up.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
So with it, you said you're rewriting part of the book. You said that you're rewriting the ending of it.
I'm gonna try to have to rewrite the beginning and the end.
So,
and I'm gonna have to sort of go through because the tone I wrote it in was very much, you know, if it happens, what might happen, you know, that type of structure. Because that's been one of the hardest balancing acts of the book, is to tell the story when the story wasn't over, right? But now it's over. But one way to get around that was to focus less on the movie itself and more focus on the story of the people in the movement and why they were doing what they were doing. And as I dug more into everyone else's reasons for wanting to be involved, I found truly, you know, heartwarming and beautiful stories that I thought were worth sharing. So, you know, a lot of it was reporting just on everything that happened with Zack getting into the DCEU and all the stuff that happened around, like through BVS, how BVS was received, what it led to with Justice League. I have obviously my reports from going to the set of Justice League. I have my reports from going to the set of Army and speaking to Zack during that. So all that stuff can stay intact. All that was but my ending was going to be all the messages that I received from the fans when I reached out to them. And it came up with the idea along the way of, since I didn't know the projected ending for the movie itself, that I was going to turn the book over to the people who, you know, without them, the book wouldn't exist, which is the people in the movement. And I solicited pitches on social media for people to say, like, if you have a message you want to give to Zack, on the off chance that he ever picks up this book and flips through it, give me your message. And I received, I'm pretty sure the count is 164.
Wow.
And I put them all in. I put every single one of them in.
Wow.
So
because all it meant was that the book would be longer, you know?
Yeah.
I didn't care necessarily.
So how did that call with your publisher go when you were like, listen, we need to move the publication date?
Well, I started hearing the whispers a few days before of just it's gonna happen, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I started hearing it from some press people, and then I started hearing it from some industry people, and then I heard it from people with direct ties to Zack, and you know, still didn't believe it wholeheartedly. But once I heard the possibility of it, I reached out to my publisher and I said, hey, look, this might happen, kind of thing. And of course they were thrilled, but they said, let's wait and see what happens on Wednesday and then make the judgment call from that point on. So it happened. I sent them the press release. Like, it was exciting to see the HBO Max press release.
Right.
It was exciting to
getting that notification.
Yeah, it was exciting to have quotes from legitimate industry people who also backed Snyder. You know, like we've been supporting him full throttle, but didn't we all just want people in the industry to believe him and support him?
Yeah,
so
definitely.
Like, hearing that and seeing that was so encouraging. Of just like, good, wake up, get on board. Like clearly this is nothing to do. So anyway, forwarded the publisher the press release, and I said, okay, what now? Like, what do we do? And essentially, they bought me a month, for a deadline. So now my new deadline is July 30th. And I am starting to get some more interviews, and I'm lining up some people from HBO Max because I want to get their side of the story of how they came to this decision. And I can say that I've been talking to some people who say that Zack is now able to talk, and so
yeah, it sounds like this whole situation might have been why he was kind of avoiding you a little bit because he didn't want to give anything away.
In which case, I completely understand.
Yeah.
There were a couple of factors as to why I kind of thought Zack wouldn't want to speak in the book, and all of them were legit to me. One is he couldn't talk because he was trying to negotiate something, and now we kind of know that he was. The other thing is maybe Zack wants to tell this story himself someday, and not give away quotes to someone else. And I would take that too, if he planned on doing a documentary or some such story from his side of it. That would make sense to me also. But now I'm hearing that he potentially wants to talk, and I'm trying to finish that off. And it's one of those things, like kind of with the announcement of the actual Snyder Cut. I'll believe it 2 days after it's happened. But
so part of you is like, if this happens, my brain will explode. But the other part is like, I got to keep it together.
100%. Well, it was just funny. Like even today, I started just hashing out like questions that I would like to ask. Because you don't like, I'll tell you, this has happened multiple times over the course of the years. Like you'll be fishing for somebody for a really long time, and you're like, yeah, we'll try to pull it off. And then look back to you and be like, they can do it in an hour. Are you ready? And
oh my God.
And early on, I would be like, no, I'm not ready at all. What are you talking about? So now I've learned to prep. The minute you hear that something might happen, you learn to prep. And then that way, if and when the talent is ready to go, you're ready to go also.
So you'll be like, yes, I've been ready for this for my entire life at this point.
Well, also I'll say the beginning of the book was always going to be about SnyderCon. It was going to be about him confirming to Devin in that 31-second video clip that he had a cut. Because to me, I viewed that as sort of the Big Bang moment, whereas everybody kind of believed it up until that point. Like when he confirmed it, it was like, oh yeah, okay, now it's full throttle, let's go. And while I still think that's a great story, and I still think SnyderCon is really interesting and is definitely going to get documented, because I've got really good quotes from like Chris Wong Swenson and people like that who are in Pasadena. Now it feels like May 20th has to be the beginning of the story, and then we'll just sort of, rewind from there and say, okay, how did we get here? What brought us to this miraculous day?
And do you think you can do you can do that in the next going up to July 30th? Do you have enough time?
Sure. Oh yeah. Writers love deadlines. We thrive underneath them.
You say, well, quietly tearing out your hair from behind your computer.
Yeah.
Listen, if Zack would like to get on the phone sooner rather than later, it'll make it much easier. I'll tell you that much. But yes, I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful.
So we saw that you premiered the cover. Is that the final cover?
I think it's going to be, yes.
It's awesome.
I love it.
Oh, good. Thank you. That means a lot.
At first, I was scrolling through Twitter, and I didn't quite realize what it was. And when I finally had a moment, I went back and looked, and I saw that instead of the Daily Planet, it was the canister. I was like, that is amazing. That's an amazing idea. That's really good.
That's perfect.
Thank you very much. That was really cool. Listen, that was like a mixture of a couple of different people. I had a few really talented people volunteer their ideas. And that one is by Nick Ingram, the one I'm using. And it spoke to, I gave them all as visual prompts that I love the Art Deco style that almost got used for like the BioShock video game. But if you go back and look through, it's used for a lot of world fairs, Chicago World Fair, San Francisco, from the 1930s, the 40s, eras like that. I love that style. It's a lot of hard edge lines. It's very bold colors that I wanted to catch your eye on a cover. And they all came back with, one of them was a really clever one of the Superman statue, but it's the false god statue,
right?
But it's Zack's face, and he's holding the canister.
Oh, that sounds kind of cute.
Oh, damn!
It was cool. Yeah, it was. It was very cool, and but I definitely wanted the silhouette of the League involved in somehow, showing them, and Nick came up with the idea of the cityscape. And he had the Daily Globe planet, and then that was the one tweak I sort of sent back to him. I said, change the globe at the top to the canister, and I think it looks great. I'm really, really happy with it. Oh, but most importantly, I showed it to the publisher because I haven't done a book before. I've never done Battle. And what do you guys do? And they said, oh, normally we do it. We do the cover for you, and we'll get your input. But they said, but if you have an idea, or if someone is able to do something for you, we can potentially get it approved. And once I showed them the design, they came back with a couple of tweaks, mainly with the fonts. They just wanted sort of the subtitles to be a little bit bigger and stuff like that. And then Nick was able to do them over, and then they told me that they love it. So, I believe that that's going to be it.
So, do you think your book will be on like in Walmart and stuff?
Oh, God, I hope. Yeah, I hope so. They really want to time it to the release of Zack's movie or series. They're adamant about getting it out because we were always due for 2021. This is another thing that's been very, very beneficial. Like, Zack could have made an announcement yesterday where he said, like, I've been tinkering with it this whole time that I'm in quarantine. It's almost ready. It's going to drop next month. And it would have taken out the legs of the book. Not fully, because I still think the story of the movement is really important and really interesting. But when he said, I got to work on it some more, it's going to take some time, we'll be out in 2021, I was like, you got to be kidding me. Like, that's just perfect. Like,
I feel like the stars aligned.
Yeah, if I can be even close to a companion piece, that once people are able to watch it, if it piques their interest and they say, what's the story behind this? I want to be able to be like, let me tell you, here's a book that you can read. Yeah. That hopefully documents every step of the way. So.
Well, we've always said that we really appreciate your positivity with the movement. And I went against one of my own rules today, and I was reading some of the shitty articles coming out, and it's like, we need that book. We need more of Sean talking about the movement because he actually understands us, whereas these people are saying that we've bullied corporations, we don't deserve it, we're these horrible people. That we use the suicide prevention charity fundraisers as a way to make ourselves look like angels.
I actually have a bit of an article from Collider today. There is a piece, and I want to read it because I was, I said back when I read that, and I was just like, wow, just wow. Because there's just nothing you can say to this other than that. So, for those who listening to this and haven't read it, I don't know if you've read it, Sean. I don't know if you've read it, Meg. I know that Cole did.
Is this Drew Taylor's piece?
I'm not sure now. I genuinely just saved the bit. It's from Collider. It was put out today, and it's about, obviously, us. And it goes, fans imagined that the rough cut of Justice League that Snyder submitted to the studio was better than the one that was released into theaters in November 2017. They shared the hashtag on Twitter, bought billboards in California and New York, flew planes with a giant sign that said release the Snyder Cut trailing behind it. They even got corporations like Subway to contribute to the cause. Worst of all, they cloaked their activity, which grew into something of a public nuisance, under the shadow of charity. They regularly contributed to the suicide prevention foundations, which on the outset seems noble, but really was a way of concealing what they were actually doing, bullying everyone. And I was just like, wow, like how do you twist the stuff that we've done, the best of us, like the best of this whole entire thing, the whole charity effort, the fact that we've been working for 3 years trying to do our best to help with mental health stigma, to help inform people about suicide and suicide prevention. all this stuff that we've done, how do you manage to turn it into something like this within one paragraph?
I mean, it's really frustrating, and it's, unfortunately, you shouldn't give it a moment's thought. You know, I know it's easier said than done, but people have the ability to write whatever they would like to, and it's not right, and I wouldn't encourage it. But I'll ask this: the person who wrote that story, did he talk to anybody else on this podcast? Did he get the quotes from any of you ladies? Did he?
No.
Ask you guys about your involvement, or did he just write a hit piece based on what he thinks he's perceived?
It was definitely a hit piece on what it was definitely an outsider looking in. And, you know, like, this is one of those weird situations where it's like, I can't, like, being on the inside of this, I guess, it has skewed my perception of it, but, like, I can't imagine being on the outside looking at the movement and not seeing what good things they've done.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Like, I just can't wrap my brain around it at all.
Seeing them and acknowledging them and dismissing them, like, because it fits your narrative. That I don't understand.
I just think so many of those people are so used to writing that negative stuff because that's what was getting them attention, and now they're scrambling thinking, oh well, now if I flip my narrative, no one's going to read this and no one's going to share it, no one's going to join in, so they're just sticking to that negativity and that false narrative that they have for that reason alone.
You're exactly right, Meg, and but you know, with everything that happens, there's going to be side A that you could take and side B that you could take. And there's going to be X amount of people that take both of those sides, you know, because maybe they actually believe it, but we're not going to do anything to change their minds, nor is it our duty to change their minds, really, you know?
Yeah, at this point, I don't think, I mean, if they don't see it now, they're never going to see it. Like, they're not going to see the good that we do because they're choosing not to.
No, there will always be a narrative. First, the narrative was, it doesn't exist, you know, it doesn't exist. That got misproven. Okay, what can be the next narrative that we'll take on? Well, they'll never give him the money to finish it. Well, they gave him the money to finish it. Well, it's not going to go to theaters. Okay, fine, it didn't go to theaters. It went to HBO Max. Okay, what's the next thing we can say? Well, now they've just bullied and set a precedent. Like, stop. They're constantly moving the goalpost to figure out what the next thing they can attribute to the negativity of the movement is. And then I did a little thread, and then I'm done. You know, this is the last thing that I kind of said on it, and it was just like, if the biggest concern now for what the Snyder Cut movement did is that they've made a studio release a director's vision, and that people today are actually saying, what if more directors get their visions made? Like, that's the problem.
And, like, that's a bad thing.
Yeah, they're literally, they're saying.
The line for me was Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool. And when Ryan Reynolds tried to get Deadpool made, he was told repeatedly, no, you can't do it. No, PG-13. And he was like, no, Deadpool's an R-rated character. And he had this test footage, and they showed it all around to show them how it would work. And when the studios wouldn't back him for forever, he just leaked it himself, according to the rumors.
I totally believe that, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, no one knows, but he's made enough jokes to say, like, wink, wink, nod, nod, you know, who released this? And it worked. And we got 2 great Deadpool movies from it. And no one called him a terrorist. Ryan Reynolds, the terrorist, who leaked his own footage to get his true vision of Deadpool out there. But for whatever reason, the Snyder Cut raises $180,000 for suicide prevention while championing the artistic vision of a director like Zack Snyder, and we're the bad guys. Go fuck yourselves.
Like, pretty much. It's like, I can't, like, when I was reading some of these articles and I see them saying, oh, other directors might think they can do this. Like, so other directors getting their vision, like, artists being allowed to do their art is a bad thing? Like, how did we go from, like, having the Renaissance back in Old England, and now we have artists have to do what they're told? Like, how did we go from that, get to this point where it's like, if you're not industry, like, friendly, then it's just mind-boggling. Like, how can, and also it's like, it's good press it's good for the press too, if artists get to make their art. But
also, these writers who are consistently defending directors take the stance of those poor studio executives who had to listen to the call for the Snyder years. How dare they do their job? You know?
Yeah.
When you put it that way, I like, how dare they do that
stance?
It's just, but there's like another thing that's, I think, important, and that's basically like we have obviously there's this whole talk like we were bullying, we don't deserve to be part of it and whatnot, and we don't deserve to get that film, but it was never about us. It was about Zack from the beginning. It was always, we weren't fighting this, or I dare say that majority of people that I came across within the community and the movement, we weren't doing this for ourselves. We were first and foremost doing it because we wanted justice for Zack. That was always the main goal. That was always the top of the top. It was always going to be, we want justice for Zack. If Zack feels like justice is going to be releasing this movie, then that's what we're fighting for. That was essentially the whole thing. That's what the ultimate goal was. And that's the main victory right now. So wondering whether or not fans deserve it is just kind of, it just shows how out of the loop these people who write these articles are to me.
Right.
Well, and then I never saw any negative articles or anything written about the whole Sony and Spider-Man thing where people were literally like, oh, I'm never going to watch another Spider-Man movie unless it's made by Marvel. And it's just, that was actually bullying. But no one says anything about that. I just don't understand. And there's so much good that this movement and this community does, even just on a day-to-day basis, whether it's if you're just in a group chat with someone, just talking to them if they're having a bad day or something, or if it's raising money for suicide awareness, I just don't understand the bias. I don't think I ever really will.
No, because it's artificial. It's hard to understand it when it's artificial. There's no reason in mind. Tom Holland got on the phone with Bob Iger after those rights fell apart, and he said, please don't do this. The fans want this. They love Spider-Man in the MCU. Please don't make a business decision on a corporate level. Please let creativity win and keep Spider-Man in the MCU. Does that make him a bully? Tom Holland, you vicious bully! How dare you?
Who has to double check to make sure he didn't actually leak the entire film.
Exactly.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. Go on, babe.
No, it's just the whole thing, and obviously somehow we are the ones that are judged for what so many people do. I mean, it's not the first time that fans wanted something and they rose up for it. Yes, this is bigger than anything else that has been here before, yes, and probably bigger than anything else that will come after. But, I mean, we don't have to look that far back to see that this wasn't the only instance where fans rose up and wanted something because they were interested in it. Whether it's the whole deal with Sony and Spider-Man, or, I mean, there's rehiring James Gunn, there is the Sonic movie, all that stuff. I mean, that's all people going and saying, okay, we want this. So why? And to my knowledge, none of these groups of people, they went into it and they said, okay, we want this, this, and this. And they were loud about it, and that was it. What we did, we were loud about what we want, but we were also doing it with a good cause as the other side of the whole coin of this whole thing. When we did Billboard, we sent money to AFSP as well. That was always our thing. But we are the ones who get taken down for wanting something, for wanting to see a movie. And to me, it just feels so... I'm not going to say
biased.
Unfair, because there is no point in saying that. And But yeah, it is biased, and I don't really see where it's coming from. What is the reason for it? But I
would
guess
just focus on what Zach shows you guys, which is support and, you know, communal bond. Like, focus on that. That's all you can.
Yeah. No, yeah, definitely. I'm not letting these guys to like ruin our celebrations. Definitely not.
No, it's just like something to like to wonder about, and also like it's always nice to be able to talk to someone who's in the industry who, like, even though like you're honestly too much of a nice person to be able to see into their brains, but you understand them in a way that we can't, because we're not in the business like you are.
Well, I do have that background, but I also, without even knowing it, made the decision, the wise decision, a while ago, and it wasn't even intentional. It was just gradual and authentic as it happened, to tell the story of the movement from within the movement. And I didn't know how long it was going to take, and I didn't know how ingrained I would become. And I still maintain a partial distance to be able to view both sides of all of this. But I'm thrilled to be part of the movement. I'm thrilled to be part of everything that got accomplished in a small way, in whatever small way that I was able to contribute.
Small.
Well, listen, I wasn't there from day one, and I wasn't at Comic-Con with everybody, and I wasn't on the ground. I was saying on another podcast that the first time I knew of you guys, I was aware of the hashtag, I was aware of the interest, but it was Project Comic-Con. It was seeing the billboards in San Diego, the bus stops. And
good, that those worked.
Yeah, they worked. Seeing the quotes from all of that, and that was the first time that in the back of my mind I thought, like, oh wow, they're more serious than I even thought. And then it was a few months later, it was the Times Square billboard when I was officially saying, those two events back to back, when I was like, all right, I gotta find out what this story is, because this is something else.
Well, I mean, you say it was a small way, or that you weren't there from the day one, but I think that this is something that people sometimes like put it. They try to judge on who was there from the day one, or who did what, who went to Comic-Cons, and who did this and who did that. I don't think that's important. I mean,
not at all.
There have been so many things that were done over the years, like from small trending events to big trending events to obviously the ground events and all this stuff that was done. Even the people who just came in and just tweeted the hashtag a couple times, everybody contributed. And what you did, you put your face out there as a supporter. Mm-hmm. And I mean, to me, when I was looking at, and I remember because when we first saw you engage with the whole thing, we were wondering, because obviously you know very well, and we've just talked about the whole slander thing. We were always very hesitant of journalists, especially since the Wall Street Journal article. So you had a really tough position when you walked in because nobody trusted you. Mm-hmm. And you put your face out there, and you were willing to, go out there, support, and you put yourself on the line for this, because this could have backfired on you as well. So I think that like everyone who did something, whether it was small or big, whether they joined yesterday when they saw that stream, or they joined on November 17th, 2017, it doesn't matter. What matters is that they did contribute in some way, that they wanted to help make this happen. And we shouldn't differentiate between people who were there from the day one, or people who did big events, to people who were, on Twitter hashtagging on occasion as they could, because everybody also has different options. Everybody stands somewhere else. I mean, you can't expect folks from, say, Australia to be able to be in San Diego Comic-Con on the ground, stuff like that. It's just, this is global movement. Everybody has their options. And I think that we should acknowledge that everybody who took part was helpful. and made it happen.
Absolutely.
And to kind of piggyback off of what Nana said, really, you putting yourself out there for the movement has really helped some of the healing with the key parts of the movement when it comes to like working with journalists. Like when we asked you to do that podcast after we saw you on that show, like we first of all, we didn't expect you to say yes. So I have a policy of you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna ask him. And then you said yes, and we were kind of like, but the more we talked to you, within a few minutes, we realized that you were such a genuine person. And afterwards, like, even though we still didn't know you too well, but we felt like we had a good handle of what kind of person you are and what kind of writer you are, that we were telling people to get, like, this is the, like, if we give any journalist a chance, this is the one you should give a chance because he seems legitimate. And, like, your kindness and your dedication to the fandom more than just to get the story, because most writers will be only about the story. You wanted to talk to the fandom. You wanted to talk to everybody, no matter how big or small, and that has become like a big part of the healing when it comes to working with journalists, because we all took a hit with the Washington Journal, and like your interaction with the fandom has just helped everyone sort of be like, okay, so not all journalists are out to kill us.
There are good guys out there and girls.
Yeah, between you and Jonita Davis, we've got some two pretty badass writers that are behind us.
Oh yeah,
best. She's so great.
She had this thread on Twitter today, which was really good, actually, on the whole topic of the media and the movement.
It was terrific. Yes,
she's great.
Yeah, no,
but run, ladies. My dog is barking. I got to get him out to take a walk.
Okay,
sorry.
What's your dog's name?
Squirt.
Squirt?
Squirt. He's
Squirt.
a weird mix of a lot of different parts. He has a chocolate lab face, and he has a dachshund body, like a long dachshund body, and then he has a curly corgi tail. He's a weird Frankenstein. We always tell him that he's been made up of all the parts that were left on the floor.
I love him already.
He's beautiful.
We'll end the episode here, but we do have a quick question to ask you in a moment. So let's just end it. So this is the Trinity episode, signing off.